Hello everyone, it is Tuesday, June 3rd, and I'm going to be giving you my weekly update on my Florida Circuit 7 and appellant case. But we're also going to talk about some other cool things that we've been up to as well. So I got a lot to explain today. So as far as Florida Circuit 7 is concerned, we are on DIN 193, and that is my index. That gets sent over to Florida District 5 Court of Appeals. So this index is what happens when you trigger the notice of appeal. You have to file a directions to the clerk that tell them exactly what you want sent over in the index. So with me, I actually requested them to send over the entire docket from Florida Circuit 7. So that is a total of quite a few pages here, maybe 6 or 7 pages, but this is kind of what it looks like. It's basically a breakdown of your docket and then the page numbers of the index. So as I'm writing up my initial brief, I will be able to reference those page numbers. And then DIN 194 is incredibly important in my case between Illinois and Florida. And it's incredibly important because it will, hopefully, eventually, when we get this addressed properly by the right channels, unravel the last 3 years where Illinois signed an illegal order that reserved my rights to my children. Pete, do you want to explain this a little bit? Because this is what we couldn't talk to them about last week.
So, and because we're still waiting on the judge to make a decision, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically, there's a law that has been adopted by 49 out of the 50 states, specifically to determine cases involving juvenile custody determinations. And it is to basically, it determines which states have custody in juvenile proceedings. And if you follow the strict rules in it, the state of Illinois did not have jurisdiction to make a custodial decision when they did make the custodial decision that they made in this order. Thereby, since they didn't have jurisdiction, that order is voidable, and the way you get it voided is by filing a motion to vacate and having the court vacate that order. Mm-hmm. Now you might be thinking, okay, but that was an Illinois order and you're in Florida. Yes, there's actually case law that says that the state that is supposed to have jurisdiction can vacate the orders from the state that did not have jurisdiction. Yep. So that's the short end of it. Obviously, there are a lot more technical and procedural facts to it.
As you can see, this motion is another big one because it does have some exhibits.
The judge did not automatically deny this. We're a couple business days into the court having this one.
What's my theory on why it's still sitting?
Well, I really don't want to get into that because there's really no need to get into theories. We'll just wait and see what happens with the court. But ultimately, no matter what happens to it, we know what we're going to be doing with it. Either the court is going to say, oh yeah, we looked at it, you're right, they did not have jurisdiction, they couldn't make the custodial decision, that order's vacated, we'll start again, or they just deny the motion. Next thing would be wrapping it up in the current appellate case.
Right, because it's all tied together. Most importantly, as all of us have been connecting across the nation, we are all gearing up to file federal cases. in regards to our constitutional and civil and human rights at this point. I'm going to continue to say human rights. The violations that are happening to our constitutional rights. A lot of people have similar stories to mine, and one thing that we're all doing is we're starting to actually put into our motions the violations to our constitutional rights. So we have this as evidence in our federal lawsuits we are going to eventually file. So in this motion, that not only didn't have jurisdiction, but there was a plethora of constitutional violations. So at the end of this, I put in, it's 3/4 of a page from here to here. I put Heather Bendl's Illinois attorney Thomas Hunter filed an emergency order August 6th, 2021, advising Illinois Circuit 19 they were violating Heather Bendl's 5th and 14th Amendments and violated her parental liberties interests by sending the children to Florida, but it was ignored and the children were sent to Justin Serlick in Florida anyways. See Exhibit F. And then number 2, I say this April 27th, 2022 order is so unconstitutional that Justin Serlick has successfully used it as a weapon to keep the children from any and all contact with Mother Heather Bendl since it was signed, even though her rights are reserved on it. Justin Serlick has passed this order to all the Volusia County schools to make it appear as if Heather's rights were terminated, so Volusia County schools are blocking all access to the minor children as well. Heather Bendl has now lost 5 full years with her 4 minor children. This is inhumane to the children and Heather Bendl and does not reflect the best interest of the minor children in pursuant to Florida law. This order confirms Heather Bendl was not present for the April 27, 2022 order, nor did she have legal representation. It is also documented that the $785 a month support was not calculated using a financial affidavit from Heather Bendl. They basically calculated $785 on expenditures that Justin put on his financial affidavit and ran with it.
There's a few very interesting things. If you understand that, so Illinois did not have jurisdiction. The state of Florida actually had jurisdiction. That means anything should have been decided by the Florida courts. As to the matter of child support, Florida law is very specific. You have to have the financials from both parents. And there's literally no way to actually move forward without the financials from both parents.
Right. And I filed for the modification back in November. He still has not produced his financial affidavit, which disallows me from completing my financial worksheet. So it is a tactic that the Serlick family is using to prolong and delay the inevitable. And the inevitable is what they did is highly illegal, and it will become unraveled at some point. Whether or not it happens in appellate court or Florida Supreme Court or even Illinois Supreme Court, it will eventually be unraveled. And people are going to start getting sued by me eventually.
Right now, as far as the child support goes, because Justin filed and got the Florida Department of Revenue involved, a little bit of a reverse Uno card, because Heather has filed the modification. Now the Department of Revenue will subpoena Justin to make him produce his financials, even though he's trying to file to get child support. So now it's the Department of Revenue attorneys will basically now force them to provide their financials too, so that the Department of Revenue can actually proceed with the modification review. Right.
And so on this motion to vacate and refuse enforcement of the 2022 Illinois order for lack of jurisdiction under UCCJEA, these are my requests for relief. Wherefore, the petitioner respectfully requests that this court, A, vacate the Illinois order dated April 27, 2022, as it is legally void ab initio, and the subsequent November 19, 2024 contempt order based off of this order. B, assume exclusive jurisdiction over the matter pursuant to UCCJEA in Florida Statute 61.514 and 28 USCA, blah, blah, blah. C, discharge any child support arrears that were initiated by the Illinois order, which were calculated without using Heather Bendl's financial affidavit or the child support worksheet. Instead, it was calculated on Justin's monthly expenditures of the minor children. Notify the Florida Department of Revenue that the existing child support orders are vacated. D, order immediate in-person unsupervised access between Heather Bendl and the minor children, as Justin Serlick has been denying any and all access to the minor children since the relocation to Florida August 13th, 2021.
Now, I do want to add something there too, because there was a original guardian ad litem report from when the kids were first sent to Florida. And we have a copy of that original guardian ad litem report. And that original report specifically has a line item that says Heather will be allowed to have visitation with the children when they're in Florida.
Right.
And basically, once the juvenile case closed, all contact was cut off.
Mm-hmm. Because they were literally stolen from me. So that was their plan the whole time. Managed to somehow get physical custody of the kids, gaslight them and parentally alienate them and tell them all sorts of lies and cut off all contact so they can keep those lies up. So then I say Justin Serlick has been using this illegal void ab initio Illinois order to withhold any and all contact for 3 full years now. E, reopen this matter for a full evidentiary hearing regarding custodial determinations in light of the children's established Florida residence and establish a 50-50 parenting plan on Florida Statute 61.13, which establishes a presumption in favor of equal time sharing, which is in the best interest of the children. F, and I'm sure he didn't like this one. Order Justin Serlick to reimburse Heather Bendl for all attorney fees to date, since she has had to hire multiple attorneys through the course of these past 5 years, while Justin withholds the children from Heather Bendl. As of May 2025, that balance is $66,757.27.
That's without any interest.
Mm-hmm. 3 attorneys totaling almost $67,000, and they got me absolutely nowhere. So in regards to attorneys, by the way, this came in the mail the other day, Florida Bar. So back in January, I filed 2 JQC complaints, one against Judge Sazio Warren and one against Judge Sandra C. Upchurch of Florida Circuit 7. Both of those JQC complaints came right back as, we didn't find anything illegal. And that's because he didn't look at it. So I have been trying to reach the JQC in Tallahassee for months now, and that is just not happening. And then I also filed 3 Florida Bar complaints against the 3 attorneys down here that have had their grubby little hands dipped into my case. And that's Serena Baldacchino of Rice Law Firm, Rick Brown of Daytona, and Mary Jane Nettles of New Smyrna Beach. And so far, only one has come back that it has been escalated to the local office. So it went from Tallahassee, now it's in Orlando. So at least one of the 3 attorneys is being investigated, which means the other 2 are going to go down as well, because you can't investigate the one without seeing what the other 2 have done. So that's a win so far for me. So that's going to be exciting. Finally, some sort of accountability for these 5 players in my Florida Circuit 7 situation. And then finally, I filed something in Florida Circuit 7 yesterday that has been a work in progress for some of the things that we've been doing. My power moves started back in November. My first power move was I paid the $300 to get a Florida Department of Education statement of eligibility to teach here in Florida as a public school teacher. And then I became a Florida Guardian Ad Litem volunteer in March. which I had to do a lot of training and certifications for that, to literally advocate for abused and neglected children in Florida Circuit 7 that are in dependency cases.
How did that come about? Because that's an interesting story, but it's not like you sought that out as something to do.
I didn't. So Pete had a table at an event in Evolution Mall, and Florida Guardian ad litem was there they had a table, and they were actively seeking volunteers. You just put your name down, and then they contact you, and you literally volunteer to help neglected and abused children in dependency cases. So I wanted to see if I would be approved to be a Florida Guardian ad litem. And I was not only approved, but I was assigned a case, and I had access to minor children's information. So, apparently the state of Florida feels that I can be a guardian ad litem for other children, but I can't in any way communicate with my own. So that was my way of proving just how crazy and illegal my personal situation is. Because if I was anything that Justin, Mary, and Ira Serlick are making me out to be, and making me out to be to Judge Upchurch, Florida Circuit 7 and Florida Guardian ad litem program would not approve me to work with abused and neglected kids. So I filed into my case a lot of certificates the other day, and I want you to explain this. So go ahead and read that to me.
All right. So this was just a notice of filing evidence of Florida certificates. So it's basically you have to file a notice with the court to enter things. These then become part of the docket. It's not necessarily something for the court to act on, but it is then something that
it's on the record.
It's on the record.
That I can
it can
reference.
be referred to in other matters of the case. And basically, it's what Heather did was she compiled all of the certificates for all of the various trainings and certifications that she's been through. And
actually use the originals, because you can actually here those.
So you want me to go through each one?
Well, let me read this. So when I filed this yesterday, I literally had been working on doing this since November, so I was finally able to gather everything together and file it into my case to keep it on record, so I can reference this stuff in my appellant case and in my civil suits that I'll be eventually filing. But notice of filing evidence of Florida certificates. Please take notice that Petitioner Heather Louise Bendl hereby files into the court record the following evidence: Peter Arnold and I are fit parents according to the state of Florida. These certificates also prove neither of us have criminal backgrounds, and the state of Florida trusts us to work with and have other people's children in our home. Attached, you will find the following: Heather Bendl's 4-hour Florida parenting course completed November 5th, 2024.
Which, by the way, this is also a requirement in as soon as a Florida family law case is open, all parents are supposed to take this course and submit evidence. Have we seen any evidence that the other party has submitted it? No, we have not.
Nope. Heather Bendl's Florida Guardian ad litem volunteer training, 12 certificates completed 3/9/2025. I passed a Florida background check to be Florida Guardian ad litem volunteer in Florida Circuit 7. And when I say there's a lot, there's a lot. It took me all day to complete on a Sunday.
It took you a couple days.
So it should all be. Yep. So these are all Florida Guardian ad litem certificates.
And what are some of the subjects that they covered?
Introducing the volunteer role, child abuse and neglect, child well-being, effective communication and interviewing skills. So that would be me as a volunteer interviewing the guardians, the caretakers, the children. All
the stuff that did not happen with you.
Information gathering, documentation, and judicial reviews, because I would have been responsible for writing up JRs. Child welfare and law, poverty, educational advocacy, something my children desperately need, trauma and resilience, wrap up next steps, mandatory staff training, which this was a suicide training. This was 1 hour long anti-suicide. an overview for guardian ad litem, abuse, head trauma. So, I showed this to a few of my friends the other day, and they jokingly said, "You're more qualified than most judges to handle cases."
And then we have the State of Florida Department of Education Educator Certificate.
How do I get that?
So you have to clear a background check,
be hired by a public school
system, and have at least a bachelor's degree.
Right. So in order to get the educator certificate, you have to first go on Florida Department of Education, apply for the statements of eligibility, pay the fee. Then you have to send your college transcript to them. The Department of Education verifies your transcript and then tells you what you are eligible to teach based on your transcript. So for me, I'm eligible to teach Earth/Space Science and General Science, grades 5 through 9 and then 6 through 12. In order to convert the statements of eligibility or SOEs to an actual educator certificate, you then have to take those SOEs to a school, get hired by the public school, be background checked by the public school, have that background check successfully clear, and then you also have to complete this 1 hour DCF course this was just an addition.
I thought those were with it too.
And then the public school system sends all of that information to the Department of Education, and then they convert your SOE into this. So the only way to get this educator certificate is to successfully background check and be employed by a school district, a public school district. So now the certificate is good for 5 full years. I can teach anywhere in the state of Florida. This proves that my background is clear and I am eligible to work with K through 12 children. And then I took 4 hours of classroom behavior management, this part 1 and part 2. So that got sent to Department of Education as well.
Okay.
And then, do you want to?
That brings us to the next, the
big surprise.
Big surprise. So, and we've been keeping this secret for a number of reasons, but in working with the Guardian Ad Litem volunteer program, at some point in that, one of the people involved in that program mentioned to Heather the idea of becoming a foster parent, because sometimes, a lot of the time actually, apparently it's somewhat common, the guardian ad litems become foster parents to the kids they're working with. Now, obviously, once they become a foster parent to one of their kids, then a different guardian ad litem has to be appointed for the case. But that sort of got me and Heather talking. Now, we've been, over the last 2 years, spent a lot of time sort of renovating our house, getting it cleaned up, getting it ready for
my children,
Heather's kids, to be able to stay here. And when I say getting it ready, I mean, it was some of the bedrooms, like had sort of just been left. By my brothers. My brothers moved out and just sort of left stuff. So it was a matter of like cleaning out those bedrooms, repainting things, because these were like left as like teenager bedrooms. So we got everything looking really nice, and we've sort of just was like, we've got all this space.
We've got the rooms ready for the last 9 months like, for my kids, and it's just sitting empty. And
we wanted to, if we could bring some positivity to it in the interim, we started to seriously look at the idea of becoming foster parents and looked into what it would take to become foster parents. And
the only reason why I was willing to consider this after what my children and I went through in Illinois is because it became very apparent through doing the Guardian Ad Litem volunteer training that at least the Daytona area, I cannot speak for any other area of Florida, but at least for the Daytona area, I was absolutely looking for any indication that this area is child trafficking through CPS the way my children were in Illinois. And I have absolutely no indications that that is happening. It has always been reunification, return home, just crammed into my face.
So much that honestly, it's been a little refreshing to know that that's how the child welfare agencies are working here in the Daytona area. But I have to say, overall, we've had nothing but positive experience throughout the course. And what the foster parent, basically what we've been working on over the last month, is working through the system. So there's different levels that sort of run the foster care system in Florida, and different agencies that manage the licensing, and ultimately everything ultimately reports up the chain to Florida DCF. But right below Florida DCF, you have the Community Partnership for Children, which is the agency that works with DCF when DCF calls them and says, we have kids we need to find a placement for. It's a Community Partnership for Children that reaches out to their partner agencies, which are the different licensing agencies. Now, the licensing agencies actually work directly with the foster parents. They make sure the actual house is licensed and meets all of the requirements. But the training that we did is sort of the first step to that, and that is through the Community Partnership for Children.
It took us the entire month of May.
We
were in training all of May.
Yeah, it was a few in-person classes, a bunch of Zoom classes, and then some self-paced online training. So with that, completing the foster parent passport to training program.
We are now certified to be foster parents.
And in doing that, we also had to take, several of the trainings were very specific. So TBRI, caregiver training, that's a behavioral training and understanding for trauma related. Now, and some of this training was, when I said before refreshing, it was also eye-opening, and there were some of it was really hard, and it was honestly, I don't know how Heather kept herself together as we're going through learning how things are done down here, knowing how vastly different
knowing my children were
the process took place when Heather's case first started in Illinois. We had one whole training class that's just on the conditions for return. And so many things are different with that. Whereas here in Florida, I mean, they literally bend backwards to get the kids to be able to stay with their biological parents. And if they can't stay with the biological parents, they do what they can to not cut the biological parents out of the situation entirely. And
that is so important. If you know my story with my children, you know that the moment Justin told the Judge Morosin of Illinois Circuit 19, October 13th of 2020, he told the judge I was an unfit parent and that I was mentally unstable. Judge Morosin said, okay, well, you're telling me that mom's unfit and she's mentally unstable and you don't have any claim to the children because you're not a custodial parent and you live in Florida. So I guess they're wards of the state now. And they literally disappeared. The caseworker took away their cell phones that day, and I lost any and all contact with my children.
And how
they were literally
so how some of that's
trafficked.
Different from what the experience we had, in our training through the foster program. A couple immediate red flags. So if the biological parents gave the kids cell phones and pay the bill, in the state of Florida, nobody's allowed to take those away from the kids.
Yeah, they're supposed to be allowed to keep them.
You can't cut off the communication. The other thing that became very apparent, and it was apparent back in was it October, November, me and Heather sort of just sat down, took a couple weeks, actually went through every email, every text message, every court document. And it became so obvious that the agency, Camelot Care in Illinois, and specifically the case worker, Elizabeth Tevis,
yep,
had absolutely zero interest in helping Heather actually get through the process to reunify with her children.
Oh, they were absolutely breaking the bond that I had with my children.
And that's something we, down here in our training, they understand that breaking that bond with the parent just leads to more trauma for those kids and for the parents. And so they work to not break that bond, so much so that if here in Florida, if you have a newborn child, those parents are actually given extra time to, on their weekly visitations, to be able to form that bond with the kids. The other thing is, it was also very apparent that, if the foster kids, if the parents have, court-ordered visitation time, that's just the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So if the court has ordered, mom gets to see the kids 3 hours a week, that's the minimum that the kids have to be, available to mom for those 3 hours. But that doesn't mean that's the end of it. They encourage the foster parents to work with the biological parents. So, maybe there's the 3 hour visitation, but maybe the kid also has a doctor's appointment. So they encourage the foster parents to encourage the biological parents to be part of the doctor's appointment and medical decision.
It's night and day. It really is.
It really is. Honestly, it was shocking to me as an outsider. I mean, I knew the background of Heather's case from reviewing all of the documents and the case history. I was honestly expecting, as we started this process, to at some point, be like, "Yep, there it is. They're all the same," and we can't say that. It's genuinely, for what we've experienced going through the training, there is a genuine, concerted effort to help the biological parents correct whatever issues occurred and get the kids, keep the families together. It is not a, hold any and everything over their head.
Right.
One of the other things that was apparent, there's no, once the parents have a case management plan, which are basically an outline of all of the steps that they have to complete to move toward reunification, not having it 100% complete doesn't block visitation. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Heather's case, the case manager at Camelot Care basically got to play God and just arbitrarily, she made her own decision. Now, no, you're not ready. We're not going to do it. The court said we get to decide, and we're deciding no, we're not going to do it.
But what was she allowing the other side to do the whole time?
Unsupervised visitation.
Mm-hmm. My daughter Ariana was being flown down here to spend time with her siblings. He was getting to spend time with her. It was so obvious that Elizabeth Tevis in Camelot Care was absolutely being paid to pull my children away from me, break the bond with me, and then dump them down here the whole time. One of the things that I knew from the moment it happened, but I couldn't explain what was happening, was the one and only in-person visit I had with Bianca and Charlie in November of 2020. Bianca went into a massive behavioral outburst where she was refusing to put her coat and her boots on at the DCFS center. I think it was Glen Ellen or something like that. And it was just south of Chicago. And when the security guard started bending over us, screaming at her to put her coat and shoes on, she got completely overwhelmed. She's got autism. She got completely overwhelmed and started kicking and screaming. That turned into Elizabeth Tevis telling the security guard that I was not allowing her to put her coat and boots on, and he then called the police on us. That then triggered Bianca to go into an even more meltdown where she was biting the officers because she didn't want to go with Elizabeth Tevis of Camelot Care. So I, as a mom that just had my children ripped out of my arms a month and a half earlier, had to put my feet underneath hers and talk to her as I'm slowly scooting her out the door so they could lock the door behind her. And then she saw that my car was parked right in front of the door because I have a handicap placard, and she grabbed onto my door handles and was squeezing so hard, screaming, "I don't want to go with her, Mommy. Please don't make me go with her." I literally had to pry my 8-year-old daughter's fingers off my car handle, while all these officers are just standing in the parking lot staring at this, watching this happen. And Elizabeth Tevis is just standing there shocked. That was her breaking the bond between my daughter and I. Because after that occurred, I never saw Bianca again in person. It took a good 9 months before my attorney, Thomas Hunter, was finally able to get me Zoom visits with her. Because Bianca was so terrified to leave my side that they saw that there was a tight bond between Bianca and I, and they didn't want to keep dealing with that bond. So that's literally what they did. They broke the bond with my children.
And then ended in-person visits and barely gave you any Zoom visits. And then eventually, once the kids were in Florida,
they were dumped down here, and I've lost all access to them since because Father is hiding them from me now instead of Camelot Care.
So that's ultimately, that was some of our big news was that we've been going through foster parent training.
Yeah, we have cleared Florida's background check because I'm from Illinois. They had to have me fill out a separate Illinois background check, and no issues there. Guys, explain that to me. If Illinois DCFS charged me with neglect in 2020 and then gave them to Justin, how did I just pass a background check to the foster parents?
It was actually, to be specific, the Illinois background check was, and the Florida ones were specific DCF database checks. It was not just a normal, FBI criminal background check. These were specific DCF state to state database checks.
Which then just further proves that what I'm trying to say is accurate, because if my children were not trafficked the way I'm accusing Illinois and Camelot Care of trafficking my children, then that means that there should absolutely be
some sort of a record. Some
sort of record that I actually abused or neglected my children, and I would not be able to pass a background check to be a public school teacher, to be a guardian ad litem, to be a foster parent. None of that would have happened. So this just further proves that Illinois literally swiped up my children, made a ton of money off of them, and then eventually dumped them down here with the abusive parent who has been holding them hostage from me since.
Now, another big step. So that was all. I know we've thrown a lot of information out so far, but a couple other big things that Heather wants to tell everybody. And the first, once Heather ended up, not by choice, ended up as a pro se, or how do you say it in your briefs? Appropriate persona or something like that. Anyways,
you said it right.
Heather had attorneys up until she didn't, and then having to figure everything out through the court process and the legal system. We've learned a lot, and happened to see, sort of got at this idea one day. Well, what if, to help yourself out, you looked into becoming a paralegal?
What if I stop giving these sleazy attorneys our money just to delay our case and work for the other side and invest in myself?
So we looked at several online programs. We were sort of shopping around a little bit, And then we
Hardcover.
found out that the university where Heather's currently working on her master's degree, and she's already earned her bachelor's from University of Wisconsin-Parkside, has a self-paced online paralegal program. So we were able to apply for special financing to cover the tuition.
Student loan financing.
And Heather got enrolled in the paralegal program. So that's her, since she has sort of a break in her master's program for the summer, we're filling it up. She's not taking a break from classes. She'll have her paralegal certificate probably by this fall.
So it's a total of 20 chapters, and even though it's self-paced, I want a deadline for myself, not only to keep myself accountable, but also I don't want to overlap this with my fall MBA classes that I'm taking. So I'm doing 2 chapters a week. So last week I completed chapter 1 and chapter 2, got 100% on both of my tests. And then this week I'm going to focus on chapter 3 and 4, which means that I would complete chapter 20 by the 2nd or 3rd week of August. And that would give me 1 week to study. And then I'm going to take my
national exam.
NALA, N-A-L-A exam the last week of August, which would give me 1 week off between when I take that exam to when I start my class September 8th for my fall semester. So I figured instead of investing in the sleazy attorneys that steal from us and don't give a rat's ass about our children, I would rather invest in my own self.
And the plan here too is there's a longer play here, even beyond Heather's case. Heather has her nonprofit, and we have seen that there is a real need out there for good assistance in understanding the process with some of this. Obviously, as a paralegal, you can't provide legal advice, but
I can
explaining
documents
explaining the process and helping people prepare documents, because we've gotten some help along the way from some people that are sort of doing this, and that's sort of the longer plan for that. And then Heather has. Did you have anything else about the paralegal you wanted to say?
Just that once I pass the exam, I'll have more letters behind my name.
Yeah.
So, Pete, what are your titles?
So, obviously I've got my Bachelor of Arts degree. I've got my Master of Arts degree in Higher Education Administration. I have my enrolled agent license, so that's an EA. That's from the IRS. It allows me to represent clients on tax matters, though I don't practice tax matters anymore in my current job.
So don't bug them.
And I also, in my current job, I have my WMCP, which stands for Wealth Management Certified Professional, and I am currently in the training courses to work toward my CFP designation, which is Certified Financial Planner.
Yep.
So I'll have a bunch of letters too.
Yeah, so while he's working on his CFP currently, I will be working on my CP, Certified Paralegal. So once I pass that exam, I will have my BS title behind my name and then CP, so BS, CP.
And then an MA,
and then an MBA.
PhD, and a JD.
Yeah, yeah. I have no plans on stopping from learning anytime soon. Your brain is a sponge and you're always learning. So. When you stop learning is when you're dead, is what my grandpa always taught me. Which kind of brings me to my next topic. Had something kind of stressful happen last week.
Don't give too much details about the incident.
When I went to my son's elementary school to see him on the last day of school, I was told that I was no longer welcome there, even though I had lunch with them all the time last year. And when they said I was no longer welcome, I said, by what grounds? What court documents do you have that you could possibly be blocking me from my child at school? And they brought out, after almost 2 hours of being very diligent on enforcing my rights to my son, after 2 hours, they finally brought out a court document that was not
very clearly completely misrepresented to the school as far as what it actually was. What do you mind me stepping
Oh yeah,
here?
go for it.
What the document actually was. So mind you, Heather's case, the only standing court documents are the orders issued, or the order issued by the court in Illinois. Florida law says Florida schools can only enforce Florida court documents, Florida court orders.
Florida court documents.
The what they had a copy of the original order from Illinois, and then they had a copy of a court order that the Circuit 19 clerk in Illinois filed after a sort of a Zoom hearing between the Circuit 7 judge and attorneys here in Florida and the Circuit 19 judges in Illinois. And the judges in Illinois, it was one judge who had nothing to do with any of Heather's case. As I guess she was the current sitting family judge, and then one of the judges who had almost nothing to do with any of the juvenile proceedings. He came in at the very tail end of Ariana's case, and he's ultimately the judge that sent Ariana to Florida as well. So anyways, they had a hearing. Everybody got together just to talk about the case real quick and make sure that there was no reason why Illinois was to have jurisdiction and that Florida was the appropriate place for jurisdiction. And they basically decided, yes, Illinois has no, ongoing interest in the case.
But the thing is, Florida, they didn't even have to do that.
Florida, yeah.
UCCJEA spells all that out for them.
So anyways, what the other document that the school provided Heather was basically a summary of that Zoom meeting written as a court order, but it was an Illinois court order. It was not a Florida court order, even though the Florida attorneys and Florida judge were party to the meeting. This was an order from Illinois. So again, no active Florida court order saying,
yeah,
this is...
So once I was given that information, which I knew the moment the principal came out and said, you're not welcome here, and which was a complete 180 from what she told us last year, because we were actually physically in the school.
And the ironic thing is when Heather was asking, the principal, said, she doesn't have a problem with Heather being there. Heather just had to provide an updated Florida court order. Okay.
Why do I, but he doesn't?
And literally, last year, the principal and the registrar of the school looked at the Illinois order and they said, no, this is an Illinois order. There's no Florida order.
Right.
We can't enforce something that's not from Florida.
So we found out after I pressured a little more, we found out it was the school board blocking me. The Volusia County School Board.
The resource officer said school board. Who knows?
We know really something illegal is happening there. We know that for a fact, which is why I refused to leave until a sergeant showed up so I could write a 3-page police report. So page 1, and I posted this on my Facebook last week, page 2, page 3, because I knew what I was doing next. I had already been planning on doing this. I just needed more evidence. And what happened at Palm Terrace last week gave me enough evidence to then move forward with this bad boy. So this is United States District Court, Middle District of Florida, Guide for Proceeding Without a Lawyer. So U.S. District Court. Yep, I am suing Volusia County Schools in federal court for violating my 14th constitutional amendment, which is rights to parent, rights to their education, etc.
And as we develop that,
interference with parental rights. So I will be suing Volusia County Schools on a federal level.
And there will be a lot more details when we get to that point.
Right.
But
so
they're picking and choosing, and it's not their job to pick and choose.
Nope, they are not a court of law. Their job is to educate our children, and that is it. They should know what the law is in the state of Florida as far as parental access. So someone there has to know they're breaking federal laws and state laws. They have to know. Someone is, I'm speculating, most likely being bought off to keep me from my children at the schools. And And I guess they probably need to maybe go back to social studies and learn the Constitution a little better. But the reason why I'm not too concerned with the federal case with Volusia County Schools is because in just 2 weeks, my initial brief is due for my District 5 Court of Appeals. So there is a whole checklist of things I got to follow. So all of this page needs to be in there. And then half of this page needs to be in there. So thank God I'm a writer, guys. Because I don't know how I would be able to have gotten this far if I didn't know how to write and publish. It's definitely a lot. Yeah, I was telling Pete last night, if I wasn't already a writer, I've been a writer my entire life. I published in, young authors when I was in elementary school. I still have my little fabric-bound young authors books. I wrote short stories in middle school and high school. I wrote poetry. I used to write musical lyrics. That whole artistic side kind of died about 15, 20 years ago. But it's definitely still inside of me. I'm still a writer. I still plan on publishing books someday on my life and what my children and I have been through. But if I was an everyday Joe that did not know how to write and publish as a scientist, I don't know how people would be doing this. So this is no joke. The appellate court really is a step up from circuit court. So if you are questioning whether or not you should get yourself into appellate court, there's always going to be a book. It's going to be a big one, but there's always going to be a guide at being pro se.
To get into appellate court, it is important to stay. You do have to go through the proper steps. You have to have a valid reason to appeal a case. It can't just because you don't like what the judge said. Usually that's either going to be the lower court used the wrong law or wrong interpretation of the law, or they had misguided interpretation of the facts. And
right.
Heather's appeal lies primarily on the law, but there certainly has been some freewheeling interpretation of facts, and just the general magistrate honestly just made stuff up, with no evidence presented, and he just sort of made shit up.
Yeah, I'm excited to get more eyes on my case. When you go to appellate court, it's not just one judge. It's 3 judges on a panel literally looking at your documents that you are, pointing them to, and basically looking and saying, where did they err? Where did this go? Well, there's a gazillion things wrong in my case.
For the most part, all that they do in the appellate court is look at the actual documents and the actual information. If you request oral arguments, they limit you to like 20 minutes tops in oral arguments. So it's not like they're sitting there and, oh, well, I don't like the way that person looked today. Or I don't like the way her voice sounded, so I'm not going to vote for her. It's literally, they're looking at the documents and the facts. So that's going to move forward. Trying to keep this under an hour, and we're getting close to that. We do want to let everybody know our schedule next week's a little weird, so I don't know if we're going to have our normal live, but we are going to we will make a live on location at a secret location somewhere in Florida. I have a work event. It's one of the perks my company basically pays for a few days vacation. We go to a few work meetings in the morning and have a family vacation. And this is now the 2nd year in a row that my children are missing out on this. Yeah, so last year, my company is a very family-focused company, and the company, pays for
all inclusive,
the family and the advisors, their spouse and their kids.
So last year, where was it?
Last year, we were at the Don Cesar Hotel in St. Petersburg Beach, Florida.
And everybody's kids were running around having a great time, and I'm like, wow, my kids will love this. Thanks, Justin.
A month after we were there, the hotel kind of got destroyed by a hurricane.
Yeah.
But it was a great time while we were there. This year we are a bit further away. Different sort of resort. It is, but this resort, they're doing our meeting a bit differently this year. It's a little bit more laid back. We don't have some of the formal events that we've had.
But it's a water park.
But the hotel has a water park.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 4 or 5 water slides and I think 4 pools.
So my kids have an opportunity to join us for the second year in a row because it's all inclusive. We don't pay anything for them to go. His company covers all of it. And this is the second year in a row that my children, including my adult daughter, Ariana, are missing out on this because of what Justin, Mary, and Iris Serlick are doing to my children and I. So, you know, they are losing on so many opportunities in life. They lost their scouting careers, their ability to be Eagle Scouts. Tommy was very close to being an Eagle Scout. Bianca was very involved with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Ariana was a Girl Scout national delegate. I'm still getting emails from GSUSA for you, Ariana, because they think that you graduated and they want to know if you want your scholarship. And then my son Charlie was about to join Cub Scouts when all of this happened in 2020. So, you know, Justin is doing nothing but harming our children by blocking all contact because my children are losing out on some really amazing opportunities to bond with Pete and I, go to some awesome places with his company. Everyone's kids are running around and I get to just sit there and tell everyone else that he works with, yeah, it's another year that I haven't had contact with my children because of a very disturbing family court case that I'm dealing with because my ex-husband's family knows the judge. So I will continue telling my story. I'm sorry, guys, that you won't be able to come with us next week. This is year number 2 that you're going to miss out on this, maybe next year. But that's about it. You know, it's just been a very busy week of dealing with Volusia County Schools BS. I spoke with a legal aid today at 11 a.m. When you go on the U.S. District Court's website, you can sign up to get legal assistance. They can't give you legal advice, but they can kind of guide you on where you need to do things. So I got that information this morning. And then once I file my initial brief, after the due date, then I can turn my focus 100% on finishing my rough draft. I already have a rough draft of the lawsuit against Volusia County Schools in U.S. District Court, but I will be digging in deeper on that and probably getting that filed. I would like to say by the end of July, I want to have that federal case filed against Volusia County Schools because one of my demands is going to be to give me access to my children at the schools. My 18-year-old daughter, I assume, graduated from high school on Friday at Mainland High School in Daytona. And when I called Mainland to try to get information about the graduation, I couldn't get anyone to talk to me. And that is illegal. There is absolutely nothing blocking me from my children at the school districts. It is 100% Justin Serlick lying to the school district, or someone at the school board is being paid off to just illegally block me. And, well, we'll get it figured out in federal court. Either way, we'll get it figured out.
With that,
but that's
thank you for
it.
listening. I know there was a lot. We're going to try to enjoy the rest of the evening. I have an early morning to go take another exam toward my CFP certification. Mm-hmm. I'm taking the retirement planning course exam at the testing center in Daytona. So we're gonna relax and watch some Netflix, and Heather's gonna get her videos posted here. Yep. And we will see everybody next week. More than likely our live Zoom next week will be from a remote location, going down a water slide or something like that. So take care.
But yeah, just keep this in mind, guys. Florida DCF, Florida Community Partnership for Children,
they all have approved us to foster other people's children in our home that we're sitting in right now, that have had 2 rooms empty and ready for my own children for 9 months now.
3 rooms. We've got 3 rooms.
Yeah,
ready.
well, now we have 3. We have a queen bed up in the loft that's
the guest room now.
the guest room, and it's available for anybody that wants to come and visit Florida and doesn't want to spend $200 a night at a hotel. You've got a queen size bed upstairs if you like to come visit. We're 10 minutes from the ocean, New Smyrna Beach, Edgewater area. But yeah, Florida says that we can take care of other people's children temporarily in our home, but Justin Serlick says I can't even talk to my own children on the phone. Explain that, everyone. I want an explanation. Because what is it? If it's not illegal activity, what is it then? On that note, think about that, and I'd love your thoughts. Have a great rest of the night, everyone. See you later.
Thanks
Bye.
for listening.